I'm Jenny, and I am one half of Wives Tales podcast.
I'm Shelby, and I'm the other half of Wives Tales podcast.
We do just kind of spooky mysteries and folklore, cryptids, talk about all kinds of stuff each week.
I mean, we talk about everything. Anything spooky and twisted and creepy, we talk about it. I listen to so many podcasts, but I would have to say that my favorite right now, I go through little phases, but right now it would be My Funeral Home Stories. And that's a podcast about a guy doing a podcast about his job at a funeral home when he was kind of in his teenage years. So he's got a lot of creepy stories on there. They're pretty good.
I love a lot of true crime podcasts, and so my top favorites, and this is hard to narrow down, but Red Handed is great. Let's see, True Crime Story Time, and Dr. Phil, for sure. His analysis of murder podcast, not his self-help podcast, because I don't need any self-help.
And other than podcasting, what's your favorite thing to do?
I would have to say camping and travel. Me and my husband camp and travel a lot, and I am also a super big thrifter like Jenny, so we're always going and shopping for fun things.
What's your favorite place you've been to while traveling?
Oh, we went to Big Bend this year, and I had never been before, and it was a great camping trip. We did the ghost town of Terralingua, and it was great. It was a good time.
Awesome. So do you try to incorporate spooky things when you're traveling?
I do. I normally come back the week after we've been to a fun place and try to do a tale from the place that I've been.
So you talk about creepy things in your podcast, and you like creepy travel. What is it that you are afraid of?
Ugh, this is the worst. It's worse than Jenny's, y'all. It's horrible. So I am afraid that I'm gonna find a snake in my toilet. Terrified, in fact. My biggest fear.
Other than being a spooky bitch and make podcasts, I love to go thrifting. I am a realtor, so I'm constantly in and out of houses, and that also helps me decorate my own house. I call myself a chronic redecorator. I'm all the time changing things, and so my house is constantly just evolving, my style and stuff like that. That's always fun to do. I have a daughter, and she plays a big part in my life as well. So we do a lot of things with her. So anything, that 7-year-olds like to do, I do too.
And what are you afraid of?
What am I afraid of? This is so stupid. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Crickets. That's my biggest fear. Crickets and grasshoppers. They jump at you and they stick at you, and I swear they're going to get stuck in my hair. And yeah, that's my worst fear.
Did you ever eat a cricket?
I don't know. How much are you going to pay me? Money talks, sister.
What made you want to do the podcast together?
Well, so Shelby approached me with it, and I was like, sure, let's do this. Sounded like a great idea. We're cousins.
We are.
And we think a lot alike. We like a lot of the same things, and so it was just easy. It just kind of felt natural, because we can talk about anything together for whatever.
So for me, I started listening to podcasts, and I would listen and send them to Jenny and be like, oh my gosh, listen to these girls. It's so great. And after that, it was like a joke, kind of, because it was me. I never finish a project. And so I was like, let's do this. And I was like, we're never gonna finish it. We're never gonna start it, this and that. And then we actually did. And it is the best day of the week for me.
It is. Every week. We record once a week. Pretty much, usually on Fridays. Every Friday evening we record an episode. And it's just fun. We get together and, we have dinner and we chit chat and we have a little bit of fun before we record, and then we record, and it's fun. So it's our evening away from the husbands and the family and
So it's your girls'
chores.
night.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. It's fun.
Was there a specific reason you chose to do a spooky podcast?
For me, it's something that has always interested me, just folklore and different cultures and, how they explain things that have happened in, the culture's existence. And so it was something that was fun to research for me, and I didn't want it to become something that I got bored researching. And so it was just a good talk, like it was a good genre to find topics in for me.
Did you
And
ask
it's
that
not-
question? Sorry.
Ask again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Is there a specific reason that you chose to do a spooky podcast?
For me, it's always been an interest to me to just kind of learn about different cultures and the folklore within their cultures, and just kind of, spooky things in general have always just been an interest of mine. And so when we were looking for something that we could find many topics in, because we're a weekly podcast, I thought that, with as many cultures as there are around the world, it would be something that we could draw from for a while.
Yeah. And it's not like true crime. There's tons of true crime podcasts out there, but there's less in our genre.
Yes.
So that was kind of important too, but we definitely wanted it something to where we could always come back. And it's a learning process every week, because we don't always know about the topics that we are researching. So
Yes.
you get to learn a little bit about the area that you're doing the tale from and stuff like that. So it's always
We have
interesting.
learned so much.
Yeah, for sure.
So you do a lot of research. How do you go about first choosing a topic and then researching that topic?
Okay, so I get inspired from just random things.
Yes.
Like a few weeks ago, I was watching Goosebumps on Netflix with my daughter, and one of those cheesy Goosebumps episodes inspired my tale for the week. And it was just, it can be anything. It can be, you drive by and you see a historical marker somewhere,
Yes.
or I don't know, just you hear like a certain region of the world on, the news, and you're like, oh, we haven't done a topic from there yet.
Yeah.
So it can be anything like that. And our Google history is probably very similar and very weird.
Yeah.
So we always joke about if one of us, dies or goes up missing or something, we have to delete each other's Google history, because we just look up the weirdest things.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if the FBI was to want me for something and like took my computer to find,
Oh, you're red flagged. I guarantee
yeah,
it.
it's awful. It's truly awful. But for me, topics are the same thing. I do travel a lot, so I get a lot of my topics from, the places I've been and stuff like that. And other than that, it's just random little things, like Jenny says, that you're just like, ooh, I wonder if there's something out there about this. And, then you just research for days and find some off the wall thing that is interesting to us, and that's how it happens.
Yeah.
What do you think is the weirdest thing you researched?
Oh, goodness.
That's that's a
Weird
loaded
is all
question.
relative, but
For me, it's the cryptids that I find. I don't know that I could name just one specific one, because there have been so many. But some of the cryptids that have popped up throughout history are the oddest things.
For our viewers who don't know, what is a cryptid?
So a cryptid is like a mythological animal. I don't know the exact definition. I'm not going to lie to y'all. But
it's something that hasn't been proven to be real yet.
yeah, it's a creature
So, like
that
a
they...
Bigfoot?
Yes.
Bigfoot,
Yes.
Mothman,
A
you know,
chupacabra.
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is your favorite thing from doing the podcast?
So the podcast community as a whole is really interesting. It's very supportive.
Yes.
We've met so many people from all walks of life, from all over the world, that we would have never even come in contact with if it wasn't for this
Absolutely.
podcast. We've done crossovers, collaborations with different podcasts. We were on a podcast in Australia.
Yes.
And we've done some, with people from California and Salem, Massachusetts, just different stuff. And it's really cool that they're like, seeking us out to be guests on their show. And so it's really cool. And everybody, shares episodes for each other. And it's just, the community is amazing. I didn't expect
community.
that, for sure.
I think for me, my all-time top favorite thing is learning where we reach our listeners. We have listeners in New Zealand, and that just amazes me. So that's always the best part of my week, is going in and finding out, where we got listens from that week.
And what's your favorite tale to date?
So my favorite one is the Split Mouth Woman from Japan. I love Japanese folklore and Mexican folklore, but Split Mouth Woman has got to be my favorite. And she was one of the ones that we did really early on. I hadn't really heard of her very much, I'd heard a little bit, but to go in and just, do a deep dive into that folklore and the history on it and the evolution of it over time and how it went from, a lady in, I don't even know, hundreds of years ago wearing a kimono with, her Glasgow smile, and now she wears a trench coat and, a surgical mask. It's just super interesting.
That was a great tale.
That was
I really
one of my
liked
favorite
that
ones.
For me, I have two. So it would have to be Mothman was probably my favorite tale.
He's a cool dude.
And other than that, I did a topic. We had traveled to a small town in Texas, and coming back, we had passed a historical marker. And I did a topic on that specific cemetery that was attached to this historical marker. And it was Babyhead Cemetery. So if y'all haven't heard that episode, look it up, because it amazed me. I loved it.
And what do you love about Lubbock?
Lubbock it's got a pretty great culture. Like, there's, lots of, you don't think about it, but there is, an eclectic, community around here. It's a little bit different. It's not all Southern Bible belts, stuff like that. There is some really interesting people around here, and that's the best part of it. There's some art, and there is just fun things to do. I don't know. I always grew up thinking that Lubbock was super boring, but as I get older, it's not at all. Like, there's so much going on.
So what are some local tales that you've previously covered on your podcast?
So I covered the Lubbock Lights in one of our episodes, which was a really good topic.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting.
And then I also did the Chupacabra, which is a cryptid from Texas and West Texas, mostly, I guess. So I did both of those topics.
And Goatman of New Deal.
Oh, I did Goatman too.
She's from New Deal, so Goatman was something that she knew about.
Yeah, I grew up listening to that little tale, and so I incorporated it into.
I've done not necessarily local, but kind of regional. La Lechuza and La Llorona. A lot of our folklore around here is very Mexican based. Because we are a border state, so we get a lot of that influence.
Yes.
And so that's those two they're good. And I know people around here that have had experiences and stuff like that, so that's cool.
Are there other spooky locations or spooky topics that you might cover in the future from Lubbock?
I have a few that I would like to cover in the future. Something about Buddy Holly. With his ghosts, there's been not necessarily a sighting of his ghost, but there is a classroom at Lubbock High, I believe, that you can hear music in, and that's rumored to have been his homeroom class.
And same thing with his grave.
Yeah,
you hear music every now and then at his grave. You can hear Peggy Sue. Let's see, Lubbock High. We always hear about Lubbock High being haunted. I went there. I did never experience anything, but you hear about the bell tower being haunted. There's, I think, a girl that supposedly haunts that. O.L. Slayton. I went there as well, and their theater auditorium is supposedly haunted. and again, I never had any experiences, but I heard those things. So, you know, maybe one day we'll get enough information for a topic on those, because you want to stick close to home for some of this stuff, because it is interesting and it is, you know, it's your background.
Yeah.
So you didn't have any experiences while you were at Lubbock High or OL Slayton, and so you haven't been able to personally prove those to be true, but have either of you had experiences or come across any tales or stories that you believe are true?
So I'm
Skeptics. We're both
yes.
skeptics. Very skeptical.
I'm highly skeptical, so it's hard for me to say if I've ever had an experience, because I would, you know, chalk it up to something else. We joke that we have a studio ghost on our podcast because little things will happen and we get to blame the studio ghost. But I don't know that I've ever had an experience that I would actually say was something out of the ordinary.
Right. I feel like I can always logic things away. Even if I'm having an experience, like I will try my hardest to figure out what it is other than a ghost, because I don't know.
Yeah, same.
Because if they're real, I might be scared of them.
Same.
So I don't want to admit that, I think.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I've not really had any experiences per se. I don't know. I did in high school, one of the things to do whenever you start driving is go see Memphis Man. And there's conflicting like areas of where he is, but he's like a traveler, like a businessman, maybe a traveling businessman or something. And if you turn off your lights and you drive down the street, and you can see his reflection kind of leaning back on a utility pole, and I've seen that, but it's an optical illusion. I mean, it's not a real ghost.
See, and I've never even seen that.
Okay,
So.
we'll go do that one night. I'm assuming he's still around. But I mean, I can, and he might be a ghost, but to me he's an optical illusion, because I don't necessarily believe it, I guess. So I don't know, but that is something, you know, you have to do it. You have to go see it. So you have to do that. And like, you know, here in a little bit we'll go throw pennies on Buddy Holly's grave, because you're supposed to do that. It's good luck. And
The thing to do around here.
yeah, so not necessarily that you believe in it, you still have the superstitions and things like that.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
I can't think of anything. There are so many small tales around Lubbock,
Really are.
and we do plan to cover several of them, but in the moment, I can't think of all of them.
We have intentions of doing an episode of our podcast to cover all of the Lubbock folklore
Yes.
around the same time that this comes out. So we'll be doing that. So
Yeah, make sure to check it out.
yeah, subscribe to us.
What's your website, or how do they find you?
That's all Jenny. That is all Jenny.
All right. So our main thing is a closed Facebook group,
Yes.
Wives Tales Podcast. We're on Instagram at Wives Tales Podcast, Twitter at Wives Tales Pod. You can email us if you feel like you want to do that. We're wivestalespodcast@gmail.com. And then you can hear us on pretty much any podcatcher. Like I said earlier, if you can't find us, let us know,
Yes.
because I mean
We can change that
Yeah.
for sure.
we can find it.